Steve Wyche is joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show, my compadre from the NFL Media Group, who has been, have you been in San Francisco ever since that Friday night game, Steve?
I have been up here, in Santa Clara with the Niners. Once it happened, they were like, you stay. And I was like, okay.
Okay,
we're here.
Let's walk through this here. Because you and I texted you, but you and I haven't spoken yet. So who noticed that Kaepernick was sitting? Who first noticed that? Was that you? Was it somebody else? Or what happened?
Well, here's full disclosure on this. I was there, but, the press box is 10 million feet up. So Mike Garafolo, our colleague, called me and said, hey, Kaepernick is not standing for the national anthem, and I'm hearing it's not his first time. So I looked, sure enough, and so, throughout, at some point during the game, I just told the Niners PR staff, like, hey, look, I've got to pull Kaepernick to the side after the game. You can't let him get away because I've got to ask him about this. Mm-hmm. So the franchise was aware at the time that I was going to ask him about this. And when after he did his mass media scrum, his post-game presser, I pulled him out to a hallway and asked him why he didn't stand for the national anthem. And Rich, he was very willing to open up. He was, as you saw, his comments were very frank. They were passionate, and they were with conviction, and they were well thought out.
And so you were there, I imagine, in the scrum a couple of days ago when he spoke on Sunday as well, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's going to sit for the national anthem, I assume, Thursday night. Correct?
Thursday in San Diego. He's going to start the game. Chip Kelly told us this morning that Blaine Gabbert will not start. And while that seems like it's an indication that it's Gabbert's, starting job now, Chip Kelly said it's mainly because Gabbert's played 43 preseason snaps. Kaepernick has only played 13. They kind of want to balance the scales. So here you are, Rich. We're going to have a starting NFL quarterback, even for a preseason game, not standing for the national anthem in a stadium where you have some of the most significant, all branches of the military based there down in San Diego. So a lot of their families and people affiliated with the military are going to be at the game. And even though Kaepernick has said that his stance is not anti-military whatsoever, as we've seen by the vitriol and some of the thoughts in the media and on social media, a lot of people take it as an affront to the military. So it's going to be one of the most interesting national anthems that we've seen in a long time in NFL stadiums.
Well, let's put the football aside for a moment and stay with the subject of the national anthem and him sitting. Or is he going to speak to the media again before the game, as best you can tell, to see if anything has happened in his mind with community outreach in either direction, to find out more about his stance before he may sit again?
Well, I'll tell you, he may speak today, he may not. This is the last media availability.
Okay.
But based on the two conversations, one that I had with him individually and one in the group scrum, it doesn't sound like, in terms of him possibly changing his mind, it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. He is committed to this. He said he's willing to go rogue if nobody wants to join him in the cause. In terms of community outreach, we've asked him about it. He says he has some things in the works of what he plans to do individually or maybe as part of a foundation to go do some things in the community. So it's not just him speaking to this or protesting, where he's actually going to be hands-on with some issues. But yeah, I could tell you, Rich, just from the two conversations I've had, he's committed. Even though people say he might be doing this to get his exit from the 49ers, and again, this is just me being presumptuous here, from everything he is saying, he seems like he is all the way in support of his beliefs and what he thinks are wrongdoings against minorities and blacks in this country. And he's going to keep on pushing that envelope.
Steve Wyche joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. What is the mood around there?
It's interesting. Inside the building, it seems very, very football-centric. And I think, you've heard some former players say this, a locker room is kind of where you can have these opinions and have these discussions, and it's okay in terms of guys pulling together and doing their jobs, because you do have so many people from diverse backgrounds with different takes on so many things. Torrey Smith, the wide receiver whose locker is about 5 feet from Kaepernick's, said a lot of things Cap is saying now publicly are things that he said in the locker room. So his message was not new to the players who've heard it. So Yes, it's created a firestorm, and players are having to answer questions about it, players who really didn't want to be, involved in something like this, but they've been mature. And again, I don't think there's any hard feelings against Kaepernick, especially watching how other players have interacted with him and vice versa.
Steve Wyche joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. How much has Harry Edwards been around? Dr. Edwards, we just saw video for our radio audience and for you, Steve, talking to Kaepernick. We've had him on this show. We've invited him to come on this show to talk about this. How much are you seeing him around there?
We saw him just that one day. As you know, he's a consultant with the 49ers, and
Yes.
I will say that every Niners game I've done in Santa Clara at their stadium and at Candlestick, he's been there. So he's a consultant with the team. Maybe he's not around every day. We know he's a sociology professor, I believe, at Cal. But he was there that one day. Kaepernick said that they have spoken, before the stance, after the stance. So maybe he's one of the voices that he consulted, I guess, to educate himself about issues and athletes, doing things like this. We really don't know, but we saw Harry Edwards there just that one day. I believe it was 2 days ago.
So do we know what the metric is of Kaepernick for him to keep the temperature taken, for him to either measure his stance or change it? Do we know how this is going to play on from here on out, Steve?
Well, here's how it's going to play on. If he's on an NFL roster, first off, Thursday night, he's going to be asked about it again after the game because he's playing. He's going to speak. He's going to be asked about, because he says he is not going to stand for the national anthem, so he's going to be asked about this. He's going to talk about it now. If he gets cut, remember the cut's down to 53 after this, after Thursday's games. If he gets cut, then we'll see if another team picks him up because, a lot of folks don't think he can play anymore, first off. But if he gets picked up, he's going to continue to do this. Does a team want to welcome him to do this? And if he doesn't get picked up, will he now use his position because he has thrust himself into the media spotlight? Will he be on CNN? Will he be on BET? Will he go on Fox News? So this isn't going away. No matter how what happens to Kaepernick on the football field with the Niners or with another team, or if he gets cut, this issue is not going away.
And with all due respect to Thad Lewis, you can't sit here and say it's better for the team, football-wise, to not see if Kaepernick can get his footing or his shoulder or his hand or anything that's been hurt back in working order to see if it works with Chip Kelly.
Well said.
And boot him from the team. You can't sit there and say that's a proper football decision.
You can.
Steve.
Chip Kelly said today, Rich, that Colin Kaepernick is one of his two best quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So how about that? Setting the table. So if they cut him, Chip is saying, well, football-wise, he's one of our best too, but maybe they wanted to cut him for salary implications because he spoke up.
Well, what are the salary implications, just so we can get the full?
Yeah, the salary implications are this. If they cut him, then they've already paid him a little bit more than $12 million this year. Okay, so he's already received that. They will no longer have to pay him. If they keep him, he has some other incentives in there that can raise his salary up a couple million more dollars if he's on the active 46-man game day roster. They could keep him and just make him inactive on game day, like the Redskins did with RG3. Why would they do that? Because if he suffers a significant injury that could keep him on the roster as of April 1st, 2017, they have to fully pay a $14.9 million salary to him then. So, that's something they have to think about. If we cut him, they don't have to take the risk of having to put him in a game or put him in practice where he could actually get hurt.
Last one for you, Steve. One for you, Steve, because I have to take a break, and I know you've got to go back to work with the media group. Crystal ball it for me. I know you don't have one. That's one of my favorite coaching cliches. I don't have a crystal ball. But we all know Kaepernick's – well, let's put it this way. Here's the most likely scenario. He sits for the national anthem Thursday night, and it's a fourth preseason game. You really can't evaluate too much anyway. They're going to have to sit there on Saturday and make a decision and then roll with it. What's going to happen, do you think here?
Boy, this is such a tough call. I think he actually – makes the roster, and at some point during the season or the next couple of weeks, they let him go. If maybe they end up bringing in somebody and to replace him if they have to do that. I don't think he's here long term, but I would not be surprised if he's here for the final 53. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if they cut him.
Steve, I appreciate the time. Thanks very much.
You got it, Rich.
We'll see you soon. That's at Wyche89 on Twitter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.